episode 21 of the Woke-ish podcast. This is Ebony.
And this is Alma.
And this week's topic is Issa taught me. So for our What's Being Slept On segment, we'll be discussing 10 things that we've learned from Issa's show, Insecure. So if you aren't caught up, this is a spoiler alert. So Once we get through our shout out in the no segment, you can tune out if you want.
Well, watch it and then listen to us.
Watch it and then come back. Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
We wanted to put on y'all's radar that we actually recorded last week's episode as a video and audio. So if you want to see our episode 20 in video format, you can go to our YouTube page, and it's the most recent one where we answered 20 questions. It's pretty funny. It might be fun to watch us in video.
Yes, and our YouTube page is just Woke-ish Podcast. So you just type that into YouTube and you'll see our little logo, Woke-ish Podcast, and then you'll see a lot of the other clips just to make sure that and then you'll see us.
Yeah, and we might do those videos every once in a while. It won't be every week.
Yeah, and even if you already heard it, go back and check out some of your favorite questions or just see, what we look like.
Yeah, because you don't get to see our faces very often.
Yeah. So we'll try to post on Instagram every time we do a video. For last week's episode, we posted a clip from it, so you guys can get a sense of what the video looks like. But we're definitely going to keep working on it, adapting the videos to make it better and better. And so definitely go back to past episodes if you run out of and want to see it in video form.
Yeah. Okay, so now we will jump into our shout out segment.
And this week, our first shout out goes to Ayanna Pressley, who won the election to represent Boston in Congress. And she positioned herself to become the first woman ever elected to Congress from the city because this was a primary. So she won the Democratic ticket. And since there is no one as of now running on the Republican ballot, she's pretty much set to win. So just, big step in terms of not only just getting a win, but also almost becoming the first woman ever elected to Congress from the city. And so just wanted to highlight a couple quotes about her and about what she said in terms of her win. And so in an article, she says that people who feel seen and heard for the first time in their lives, a stakehold in democracy and a promise for our future, that is the real victory. That is bigger than any electoral victory, and I want to thank you all for being foot soldiers in this movement and for ushering in this change. And so it was this is another one of those underdog stories because she beat Mr. Capuano, who is 66 and held the seat for 20 years. And he was endorsed by almost every major political figure, and this happens to be the same part of the same seat that Kennedy was in, and so it's just kind of like a historically important position, and for it to go to someone who was running against someone who had been doing it for 20 years and who was not endorsed by anyone, and who really did a grassroots kind of knocking on every door type of thing is really great. And to me, the most emotional thing, aside from the video of her actually finding out that she won, which you can look up on Instagram. I know Sean King posted it, and they show a video of her stepdaughters crying. It's just so great. But what I loved is she said that she argued that her life experience with her father struggling with drug addiction and being incarcerated for most of her youth, and the fact that she is a survivor of sexual assault better prepared her to help people who have lived through trauma and other struggles. Because she says that perhaps a defining line of her speech was that the people closest to the pain should be closest to the power. And so just kind of highlighting that sometimes it's, you turn that trauma and that pain into something that can be positive, and learning that people relate to that, and that, the reason why she won is because people kind of identified with that. And so just shout out to her for turning her pain into a movement, and also for just getting that win, and for showing a lot of people that it's possible to be the underdog, to don't give up. And for women, just showing us that women, in this time during this administration, one of the best ways to respond is to be elected. So definitely, we always like to highlight to you guys, it's so important to vote in the November elections. that's coming up next month. We posted something on our IG kind of about some people to look out for, and we'll keep doing that in the future. But we need people in our local community. So whatever that happens to be, don't forget to vote for your local representatives in whatever district that you're in, because that's also going to help us send representatives that we identify with to Congress to be able to, if we can't control the president, we can control our representatives. So shout out to her.
Yeah, shout out to her. Out with old and in with the new.
Yeah.
So our second shout out goes to, I guess, Nike and Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick is a former American football player and civil rights activist, and he has now become the face of Nike's new global advertising campaign, Believe in Something, even if it means sacrificing everything. So I wanted to kind of highlight Nike and Kaepernick and not really focus on, I'm sure, what is most of the uproar and outrage that you've heard about in this shout out segment. So after giving the shout out, we're going to transition into our In the Know segment, and we'll give more detail about some of that backlash. So now for our In the Know segment. So like I just said, Nike elected to make Kaepernick the face of its 30th anniversary campaign. And this has proven to be a polarizing and really divisive move. In protest, many people on social media can be seen destroying and burning their Nike clothing and shoes, which they've already purchased, mind you, and even burning it while still wearing it. So if you want to see what this looks like, I posted this on our Instagram page. There's literally a man who burned his shoes while they were on his feet and ended up in the hospital.
I didn't know he ended up in the hospital.
Yes, yeah, which is ridiculous. So Kaepernick said of his protest, "I'm not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses Black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder." So that's just a refresher of what this protest, this, take a knee protest, even meant from the onset. And there are tons of people that have been opposing this protest for a bunch of reasons. Like, they want their football to be protest free or free of social issues. They feel like he's taking advantage of his occupation and using his platform in order to protest an issue that these people don't really care about, which I feel like is true, and that's probably, like, we probably wouldn't even know who he was if he wasn't an NFL player. Oh, and that he hates police, and that it's a slap in the face to veterans and people serving in the military who they believe have died for the flag. I really don't believe that these people have died for this flag, but that's neither here nor there. So even the National Association of Police Organizations Incorporated wrote a letter to Mr. Mark Parker, the chairman, president, and CEO of Nike, expressing their disdain for the company's choice and decision to encourage a Nike boycott.
And disdain for Colin Kaepernick. Spend some time just saying that Colin Kaepernick doesn't know what sacrifice is and kind of isn't worthy of having this campaign.
Yeah. And so I don't know if it's possible for people to boycott Nike for reasons that aren't racist at their core. Like, inherently in opposition to the fact that this is a protest, kind of not necessarily a protest by or of Black Lives Matter, but it stands side by side with Black Lives Matter. And essentially, this is a protest of a protest in the same way that All Lives Matter was a protest of a protest, which was Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
So it's like all these like conservatives, these white conservatives, these pro-police white conservatives are erecting protests in response to the protests of Black people.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, what can Black people have?
Yeah, no,
it's not even the right to protest.
To me, it was just kind of like this. So we, as people of color, have to be sympathetic to the feelings of white people being offended by this campaign, but yet they do not have the ability to be sympathetic towards people of color being offended about Trump calling people from Haiti, saying they come from shithole countries, saying that people from Mexico are rapists and are bad hombres. It's like when that happens, when something offensive is said, when Trump makes fun of disabled people, when Trump says grab them by their pussy, I'm supposed to not be offended. But you can be offended by Nike. Yeah, but you can be offended by a campaign that doesn't have any vulgar words. Yeah. That is just a picture with white words that causes you so much emotion
that you're gonna burn your clothes while you're still wearing them.
And I'm supposed to just sit down and not say anything when I'm offended. And that to me is just kind of like the hypocrisy of like people not seeing the privilege that it's okay when they're offended and when they protest, but it's not okay when other people from other groups are offended and protest, which highlights again to me like this is a race issue, and a lot of people are like, it isn't race. What makes it racist is you bringing it up and bringing it in. And it's like, no. Yeah. Like the racism is also pretending that it isn't about race.
Yeah. It's like you're pretending to be colorblind. Yeah. Oh, like I've heard people say, oh, I didn't even think about his color. What? That is BS. There's no way that you can, if we understand the way that social identity works, right? And I'm going to assume that in a basic way, we all do. So whether it be race or gender, when you look at someone, in order to interact with them, your brain automatically makes an evaluation of them. Yeah. So you use what you see in that person, they're like phenotypically, to determine how you're even going to approach them, talk to them, all of those things, or whether or not you will. Yeah. So if you appraise them and they look black and you're racist, you may not talk to them at all. Yeah. Or you may feel like you don't relate to that person enough to have a conversation, or whatever. You know, like there's a bunch of different ways that we determine how our interactions will be and all that stuff. But there's no way that you don't see somebody's color, or that it never occurred to you.
Yeah, I mean, you see age, you see race.
Like, so when you look at, a man looks at a woman, right? A man may look at a woman and be like, and think, oh, I'm gonna, and it's not even a thought that's like a conscious thought. Yeah, yeah. But subconsciously, they see a woman approaching a door, they open it. Yeah. Or you see someone that's older, or you see someone that's pregnant, you give them your seat. Yeah. Like, that's not even something that you have to process.
Or you see a child. Automatically. You never see people say, I didn't realize he was a child. It's like, no, you do. That's why you
disregarded it. Like, that's what that's called. That's disregard. And so you know that Colin Kaepernick is a black man or a biracial man. You process that. So you can say that you didn't incorporate that into your feelings and attitudes toward him. That's fine. But to say that you didn't see his color is BS.
And I think what makes people more mad is that, and a lot of black people have pointed out that it's just kind of like, it's the rich black people that white people get like really most offended by saying like, you should be so lucky that you are in this position. So I think that one of the kind of narratives and things that people bring up is, oh, he didn't lose anything because he was already this privileged football player, kind of like saying that because he was a wealthy black man making millions as a football player at one time, that should have caused him to be more than satisfied. Like, why? What does he care about these social issues? He's not a social issue person. It didn't impact him, without realizing that, like, wealthy people of color are still people of color. Yeah.
And then the moment he steps off a football field, like, now you may recognize him and know who he is, but to the world, he's a black man. So it's like they're literally, maybe if he wore his jersey around 24/7, you would know that he was in the NFL. But no, for the most part, like, off the football field, he's just another black man. And he'd be treated like just another black man. We hear time and time again celebrities that we hold to this high standard and we put them on this pedestal, but there have been celebrities who the police have been called on them when they're trying to get into their house, or they forgot their key and locked themselves out, and their neighbors call the cops on them because they look suspicious as a black man. And it's like, no, I live in this house. I'm your neighbor. How do you not recognize me? But all black people look alike. So it's like, oh, this is a suspicious person. Looks like they're breaking into a home, and then the police come and the police are called, and it's like, this is a millionaire. This is a multimillionaire. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, there have been lots of cases of NBA players, other football players that have shared stories of police, because this is what this is about, is police brutality and racial profiling. And their point is, I'm famous, I'm rich, people know who I am, and I'm still treated like this by police. Like, it doesn't matter.
Did T.I. just go to jail, actually? T.I. was just recently arrested because he was trying to get into his house, and the security guard was like, I don't know you. It's like I think the security guard of his gated community was like, no, you need to leave. And T.I. is being, obviously like, I live here. And it was angry. And then called the police on him.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it.
Yeah. And it's like, no, so we can pretend. And then, this is problematic, but it's just interesting to me the things that get reactions out of people.
Yeah.
Like, so you're angry about this, and I've seen a bunch of people saying things like, well, why aren't you boycotting the Catholic Church?
Oh, yeah.
Why aren't you, like all of these different institutions and entities that obviously are problematic, obviously are hurting you, hitting you where it hurts, but you're upset with Nike.
Yeah. I mean, there was recently a chemical plant got fined, got prosecuted during Hurricane Harvey for taking advantage of Hurricane Harvey to dump their waste into the water.
What?
Yeah, and they actually got felonies for it. And so it's just kind of like, but did you hear about that? Are people mad about that? Are people like, this is a terrible thing? Like, I think it's terrible to take advantage of a natural disaster to say like, oh yeah, let me use this time to just dump our shit here because we don't have to pay for it, and it can be washed away. And thankfully they were held accountable. But it's just like, you're right. Like, sometimes people do get upset over the wrong things, and there's not the measured anger. The anger for this is just, it's not surprising to me, but it's just, I think it's just so frustrating. And it's definitely, I'm hoping, a generational thing. And I mean,
so like the old people.
Yeah, so a lot of things that I've said, that I've heard from people, are people who are older, and people who, like, the military used to mean a different thing for people who are in older cohorts. Now we're not in as many wars as we were in. And now that being in the military doesn't have the same cachet because people aren't really supportive.
People aren't getting drafted.
Yeah, and people aren't as supportive as just reacting with violence as we used to be. And so I'm hoping that with the next generation, Generation Z, with the young people turning 18, because I think like Nike, I don't know why old people think Nike's targeting them, because Nike's definitely targeting like young people.
Oh, they think that they're the target consumers?
They're acting like I'm not gonna buy any more Nike
gear.
Nikes it's like, okay,
they're burning. First of all, the Nikes that they're burning look like they've had them for like 30 years.
Well, it's like, okay, 60 or 50-year-old man. Yeah. I'm sure Nike's not gonna miss your sock purchase.
Yeah, no, especially when you're buying them from like, I'm not knocking like TJ Maxx or Marshalls or anything. I shop there too, but it's like you're buying them from these discount like retailers. Nike does not care.
No,
they don't care. Like, what they care about is like, who's buying Jordans. No.
Or like young athletes. And so I think like ultimately this is
smart business move.
Yeah, it is. And it was, I was very, real, and we did the shout out, but I was just really proud of Nike for, I think, doing it. There have been so many campaigns that I think like exploit, and some people are arguing this is exploiting, but that I feel like really exploit. I think that in this situation, they really took they gave a man who was in the news for something and used that platform to be able to highlight like his own just belief system. And I don't know, it makes me a little happy to see all these people uncomfortable, because it's like, welcome to my world.
Yeah.
Like, I am uncomfortable a lot by a lot of things that I see on TV, by a lot of things that the president says, by a lot of things that politicians say, and I'm forced to just like eat it up. And so like you just,
yeah, you gotta live with it. You gotta live with it like we do every day.
Yeah.
With all these corporations that favor white folks or privileged folks or people with money and all of that stuff, and exclude everybody else. So, okay, so now for our second in the know.
Yeah, and so this is just kind of like, continuing our conversation about the Nike thing. Just wanted to also refresh people about like what exactly Colin Kaepernick was losing here, because a lot of people were saying that Colin Kaepernick didn't really, all he did was just like not get another job. But I think what's important for us to remember is that there's actually a collusion case against the NFL, in part started by Colin Kaepernick. And he argues that the reason that he was not able to get a job is because the owners of the NFL teams like got together and said, we are not going to hire him, like blackmailed him or blackballed him, I think that's the term, and said, we're intentionally not going to hire him, even though he's a good quarterback, and even though there are people who perform worse than him, because we don't like the fact that he has this protest. And so recently there was a ruling that granted a full hearing of the dispute, which keeps alive a case for that the NFL desperately wanted to go away. So the NFL argued that there was no need for this to go to trial. This was not, there was no merit to it. There was no evidence, but the arbitrator disagreed. And so Kaepernick, who was once considered one of the league's best quarterbacks, has been out of work since March 2017, when he became a free agent before the San Francisco 49ers could release him. And I remember watching this, like just so many like lesser quality quarterbacks, and in terms of quality I mean like statistically like how they perform, found work while he couldn't get signed by any team, not even like the worst team on the league, which never happens. Like I've seen lots of terrible players, like lots of terrible, the city that I'm from has had terrible quarterbacks. Like quarterbacks that I just like is painful to watch, and seen them get jobs. And so to see Colin Kaepernick not get a job, like as a viewer, I was like, that is got to be intentional. And so the arbitrator Stephen Burbank, who was appointed by the league and the NFL Players Association, said that the lawyers for Kaepernick had unearthed enough information in the past year for the case to proceed to a full hearing. And after months of depositions, including those given by some of the most powerful owners in the league, as well as document searches, the lawyers will be able to question league officials, owners, and others in trial-like format. And so I've been following this, and what I read in some of the articles is that they actually got a hold of your recordings of telephone calls and like emails where they were kind of saying like, yeah, he's bad for business, like we can't hire him. And so that's why there's enough evidence to say like this is collusion. And unfortunately, you know, Texas is always just so terrible. One of the the two football teams in Texas, the owners are the ones that are part of the group that was colluding against Kaepernick.
But see, I wonder if that's racist or if it's like, you know, I'm all about my money and he is bad. Like they said, bad for because okay, so I think that a lot of the opposition to Kaepernick in general, like at a societal level, is based in racism. Yeah. Right? Like the not wanting, like the whole issue with the flag and trying to make it seem like he is anti-patriotic and that he is, anti the military and all of these things, I think is a form of deflection, right? Trying to deflect from what the real issue is, which is the issue that we're having with police right now. But I think that ultimately, once he's a free agent and the decision not to pick him up is kind of a, about business, and is like, regardless of how they feel about the issue, it's like, well, my this will tank my viewership.
Yeah.
And
I could see
the
that.
ticket sales and things like that. So even if you do agree with what Kaepernick is doing, if you're in Texas, people largely do not.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. And I think one of the other things that were brought up is, well, Trump is potentially can get brought into this trial because a lot of people were saying that
just bring him into every trial.
The owners of the Patriots is also on here. That those closest to Trump are those that were the strongest about not hiring him. Yeah. And that's because Trump has been, admitted that I think like someone close to him admitted that Trump said that this was good for him. Like this argument about people being people claiming that it's anti-American and anti-veteran, like, and Trump kind of taking advantage of that, it makes him look good and he puts people on his side. And so Trump wants this to kind of argument or whatever to continue. So we'll definitely keep you guys posted, because it, to me, like the NFL has never admitted. I've been I've been a football fan for a while now, and because I entered a relationship with a huge football family, and they've never copped to being responsible. I mean, they barely cop to responsibility for domestic violence. They don't cop to responsibility for CTE. They don't cop to responsibility for exploiting their players. Like it's always just like, don't say I'm sorry, because then that admits that we're at fault. And so for them to finally be held accountable about something, to me is like so huge. And so, I'm really glad that Kaepernick decided to do this, because he could have easily just walked away and said, it's okay, like, I'm just never going to play football again. I'm just going to do this social justice thing. But for him to, like, try to hold the NFL, even if he doesn't win, like, just the fact that they're going to trial and they're going to have to, like, defend the fact that why they didn't hire him, and make up reasons as to that aren't surrounded by race, is just, it's going to be great for me just to watch them cringe. And so hopefully a lot of people will be held responsible. They're saying that they might settle before it goes to trial. I mean, honestly, I think that that's the NFL's best option, is to just give them a large sum of money, and we'll see if that's what Kaepernick wants.
They don't want to do that.
Or if Kaepernick doesn't even want the money, and if he just wants the win. So I'm hoping that Kaepernick just wants the win, and no amount of money will be able, and it's less about the money and more about, like, being right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah. So we'll definitely keep you guys posted, because this is going to be an ongoing story, because if it goes to trial, it's definitely going to get ugly.
Yeah, I think he should. I mean, if he's thinking about his legacy,
and
they, like, he's in conversation right now, like Van and Jay-Z are saying that he's in conversation right now with, like going down, like, with Muhammad Ali and all that stuff in terms of his legacy. And
definitely.
So I think that this is an important fight, and it will really shape what the future looks like, and how we approach these issues, and how we think about athletes in general as people that have a platform that can be used to create some visibility around social issues.
Yeah.
Okay, so now for our last in the know topic. So I just wanted to give some clarity around one of the issues that I brought up last week, which is about California and it becoming the first state to end cash bail bond after a 40-year fight. And so I kind of was approaching this, I think, from a very, like, optimistic standpoint. But now, after having read some other articles, I'm realizing that this could also potentially be very bad, depending on how judges kind of approach this. So this information I'm taking from NPR, and it says that under the California law, those arrested and charged with a crime won't be putting up money or borrowing it from a bail bond agent to obtain their release. Instead, local courts will decide who to keep in custody and whom to release while they await trial. Those decisions will be based on an algorithm created by the courts in each jurisdiction. So that already alone, I think, kind of demonstrates why this could be potentially problematic. So this is relying, for the most part, on courts and judges to determine who gets to go free while they await trial versus who has to sit in jail. And I think that puts way too much power in these judges' hands. So in most nonviolent misdemeanor cases, defendants would be released within 12 hours. In other instances, defendants will be scored on how likely they are to show up for their court date, the seriousness of their crime, and the likelihood of recidivism. So all those things seem pretty subjective, right? Like, how likely they are to show up for a court date, like, how do you even determine that? How do you determine the likelihood of recidivism in a way that does not take into account, whether explicitly or implicitly, the race of that person, their socioeconomic status, and all these other things that could ultimately disproportionately impact racial and class minorities. Some people could be released on other conditions, including monitoring by GPS or regular check-ins with an officer. The goal of the legislation is to eliminate human bias in court proceedings. But it's like, is it really eliminating human bias? This algorithm sounds a little fishy to me. But critics are arguing that the new system that will be created by the courts runs the risk of perpetuating discrimination. Meanwhile, the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union of California, an original co-sponsor of the bill, pulled its support, arguing that last-minute changes give judges too much discretion in determining under what circumstances people will be released or kept in custody. They're quoted stating, "We are concerned that the system that's being put into place by this bill is too heavily weighted toward detention and does not have sufficient safeguards to ensure that racial justice is provided in the new system." And that's a quote from ACLU's Natasha Minsker. Ray Jayadev, co-founder of advocacy organization Silicon Valley Debug, said, like the ACLU, his group is a former supporter of the bill. Ultimately, as it is written, he told the Sacramento Bee, the law discriminates against the poor. They took our rallying cry of ending money bail and used it against us to further threaten and criminalize and jail our loved ones. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of wanted to give like a little bit of update about like what I'd seen in articles that are raising some attention around how this bill could potentially be problematic, even though on its face it seems like it would be good for California. And in last week's episode, I had hoped or stated that I'd hoped that other states would follow suit. And while I do think that the bill can be good, I think that like the ACLU stated, there aren't enough safeguards to make sure that it isn't operationalized or put into practice in a way that perpetuates some of the issues that already exist. In that we see that poor black males tend to get the short end of the stick when it comes to bail hearings and when it comes to awaiting trial. Like it seems like that process is not only elongated for them, but that they're also given these crazy high bails. And so I was thinking that because they were given these crazy high bails, this would help them, and that it kind of creates some equality or like makes this process more equitable. But it's like, no, like we could still say that a young black man who doesn't have a passport and doesn't have any money is more of a flight risk than this white man with all of this money and passports and visas and all of this stuff, which we've seen happen in the past. And so, I don't know. Did you have anything to add to that?
What I hear a lot sometimes from people being from the more quantitative, I'm in both like the quantitative and qualitative side, which means people who run numbers and people who do interviews. And so for the people who crunch numbers, they'll tell me, algorithms are race neutral, like numbers aren't racist. And what I like to remind them is that no, but these algorithms are based on patterns that are based on actual current patterns about the criminal justice system, which themselves are shaped by racial disparities. Mm-hmm. And so like Ebony was saying, there's already a higher likelihood of a black male to be arrested because of racial profiling, because of where police officers target people, because as we know, and we've stated in one of our earlier episodes, people across races commit crimes at the same rate, but we see a disproportionate amount of people of color, minorities, specifically black individuals, black men, being incarcerated because they're specifically targeted. Mm-hmm. And so if these groups are specifically targeted, then they're going to have a higher likelihood of, committing crimes in this algorithm. And so and race will be one of the determinants for your likelihood to be a flight risk, your likelihood to engage in recidivism, which is the likelihood that you'll commit another crime. Mm-hmm. And so I think that what people have to keep in mind that make the argument that numbers aren't racist is that no, but patterns that are based on numbers are. And so, that's why we were kind of both, I think, at first optimistic about this, because on the face it does seem like a positive thing, but then once you get into it and you realize it doesn't really change the problem, which is the system.
It just makes it easy. It's honestly going to make it cheaper for wealthy people or people with access to wealth to essentially get out of jail and not have to sit in jail while they await trial, because it's now it's cheap. Now you don't have to pay bail.
Yeah, I mean Harvey Weinstein, who's been convicted, who's been accused of rape. Mm-hmm. There are people who've been accused of raping one woman and they're in jail. He's been accused of raping more than one woman and he's out on $1 million bond.
Yeah, and it's
and he's out and about.
Yeah, it's you're free to be a criminal as long as you have the money.
Yeah. And he's not a flight risk because he has a lawyer who says that,
Yeah, and like the lawyers always say, we'll turn over the passports.
Yeah,
We'll turn them over.
Yeah.
And it's like, so he could be living large in his mansion, multi-million-dollar mansion, like watching his old movies or whatever the heck.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So, thank you, Ebony, for providing us an update on that. Sometimes when we present things and we later learn about them or learn more about them, we like to be really straightforward with you guys. Yeah, and just kind of to let you guys know that we're also when we see something that we are confused about or unsure about and later learn about, we want to bring that to you guys so that we can expand this conversation.
Yeah. We wanted to talk about the recent murder of Botham Shem Jean in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
So on Thursday, September 6th, a Dallas police officer killed her unarmed black male neighbor in his apartment. She was off duty at the time, and she returned to her apartment complex after a shift in full uniform at about 10 p.m. and fatally shot her neighbor, claiming that she mistook his unit for her own. She was not arrested Thursday, but after finally being arrested 3 days later on Sunday, she kind of changed her story and told the authorities that the door was already open when she entered and that she shot Botham after he had ignored her verbal commands to put his hands up. The officer's name is Geiger. So Officer Geiger, who lives in a unit directly underneath Mr. Johns, parked her car on the wrong floor of the parking garage and walked to what she thought was her apartment, according to an arrest warrant affidavit that she gave the officers. She inserted her electronic key into the door, which she, on Sunday, like I said, claimed was already open. Inside the dark apartment, she saw a quote-unquote large silhouette that she believed to be a burglar. While on the phone with 911 after having shot Mr. John, she turned on the lights and realized that she was in the wrong apartment. The authorities also took a blood sample from Officer Geiger to test for drugs and alcohol, but the results have not been released. Lee Merritt, a lawyer for Mr. John's family, challenged several aspects of the officer's account, including her claim that the door was already open. He said that witnesses had told the district attorney's office that they heard banging on the door and a woman's voice saying, "Let me in." And so even if Officer Geiger did mistake the apartment, which also the attorney points out had a distinctive red doormat outside for her own, he said that there is no indication that Mr. John acted aggressively to make the officer fear for her life. The attorney also says, quote, "It would be irresponsible to rely on this extremely bizarre, self-serving affidavit." And Miss Johnson, the Dallas County Police, the Dallas County DA, said that she had a spirited debate with the Texas Rangers investigators on Sunday before they saw an arrest warrant for Officer Geiger. She says, quote, "We had our views, and at the end of that conversation, the Texas Rangers made the decision that it would be manslaughter. I'm not challenging them on their viewpoint, and they did a great job." So that is essentially where this case stands today. So, yeah, I mean, obviously I have tons of opinions about this. So a lot of what Officer Geiger told authorities when she, in this arrest warrant affidavit, when she was finally arrested on Sunday, doesn't align with what she told officers in a statement that she made on Thursday.
Yeah.
And, initially on Thursday, she was saying that, she had to struggle to get into the apartment and all of these things, which kind of lines up with what the witnesses said as far as her banging on the door and all of that. And now she's saying that the door was already open and that she just walked in, which makes it sound like, if the door is open and then you see a random figure, that makes sense that you would think it was a burglar because the door is open.
Yeah.
But her initial story that she had to struggle to get in and that she essentially broke into someone's apartment would make manslaughter, I think, a more, or even like a murder charge, a more fitting charge, because it's like you broke into someone's apartment and you were off duty.
Yeah. No, I think, well, from what I was reading, they're saying, like, murder is premeditation. So, regardless.
Wait, is that murder went into?
Mm-hmm. Oh, like, okay. It would, like, you have to, one is, like, you murder someone in the heat of passion. So they're saying murder wouldn't be applicable. It'd be just, like, the different levels of manslaughter. But I think, like, I don't think anyone thinks that morning she's like, I'm going to shoot a black man today.
Yeah. And the fact that she said she didn't know him before.
Yeah. And, like, I think it's still hard for me to understand how you could. I mean, I've accidentally tried to get in the wrong car.
Yeah.
I've accidentally tried to unlock the wrong door. But once it didn't fit, then you take a step back and you're like,
You're like, wait, this isn't mine.
Yeah, and he had a red mat, like, on his thing. And that's something I would have noticed. Yeah. And I don't like the narrative of, I think sometimes, and people do this with police officers and with other people, is they sacrifice so much for people that they deserve some slack. And it's like,
to kill people sometimes.
Well, and it's like, don't doctors sacrifice so much? Don't teachers? Don't nurses? Don't, like, it makes it seem like people choose to be police officers. Right. People go to the academy to get training. People know the sacrifices that they're going to make. Just like people, knowing that nurses do 12-hour shifts,
Doctors, residents do 24-hour shifts.
Yeah, and she was serving warrants. They said, she was doing a 14-hour shift where she serves warrants. I'm not saying that wasn't really taxing, but I'm just saying, like, if you're going to make the compare and say her job, her 14-hour shift was so hard that we need to take in mind her, like, mental capacity, then what about doctors who, like, save people and kill people, watch people die, save lives, all in a matter of 24 hours. Or nurses who, like, have to deliver baby after baby after baby. Even me as my OBGYN, she, like, has a practice. In the middle of an appointment, we'll have to go to the hospital to deliver a baby, come back to her practice, and, like, she works, like, a lot more than a couple days a week. And so I just don't think that if any other person would have been, a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, would not be able to say, sorry, I had a really hard day, so I didn't realize what I was doing, and that's why I killed someone.
Like, I thought these were, like, I thought I was sewing the person up, but I was actually stabbing them.
Yeah, doctors get, like, fired for that. If you are, like,
malpractice suits out the ass.
Yeah, if you were too tired. I mean, they have laws that say you can't work so many hours in a row because then you'll be too tired. And so I don't like that they're trying to, like, pull on that just to kind of say, oh, well, this gives her an excuse, because that wouldn't be an excuse used for other people. I also don't like the fact that they're just, I know, going to rely on the fact that she's a woman and she was scared, because I don't think that just because you're scared, which is a lot of what we hear with police officers everywhere, is they were threatened, they feared for their life. Yeah. And it's like, you feel, initially, the first story she gave, from what witnesses say, it seemed that he opened the door. And that's how she was able to get in. And I was just talking to Ebony before this. When you go open the door, people usually turn on a light because you're like, who wants to walk around in the dark? So in that moment, she would have seen that he was a black man, and that caused her to be scared. Yeah. Not the fact that he was a black man, which has racial undertones, which is her fault. But the fact that she now changes her story to say, oh, she shoved her way into the door that was already a little ajar, which who sleeps with their door ajar? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't stay ajar. Yeah, it doesn't stay ajar. That to me is a red flag.
And this is an electronic door. So
yes,
I'm sure it was magnetized
and that she, the lights were off. And that's why she couldn't tell it was a different department. That's why she couldn't tell. And I think that the reason that's going to be important is so that she can claim that she didn't see he was black. Mm-hmm. And so that way a jury or the family's attorney wouldn't be able to claim racial bias. And so I think that what makes me more mad is that she's not saying this is terrible. I'm so sorry. I will accept that this is, this is a crime. I didn't mean to do it, but, and then her attorney trying to get her as little time as possible, which is what any attorney would do. But the fact that she's now just trying to say, like, oh, no, I don't even want the manslaughter. Yeah, like, I don't even want any charge at all. It's like someone died, and you killed him. You need to be held accountable for that. You need to go to jail.
What kind of cop are you?
Yeah.
On top of that you park on the wrong floor of your apartment complex. Mm-hmm. You try to get into an apartment that's not yours. You don't even notice your surroundings. You don't notice the fact that there's a red mat that you don't have in front of your door.
Yeah.
It's like all of these different things that we would expect for cops to be wary of. Yeah. Because you do investigative work. Yeah. Granted, maybe she's not a detective, so whatever, but I would assume that in police training, there is some kind of pay attention to your surroundings narrative or something.
Yeah, or not. You don't have to be a cop. I know if my key doesn't fit, something's wrong. Yeah. Maybe I have the wrong key.
Yeah. Like the fact that the assumption that police are able to make is that they're right.
Yeah.
Regardless of all the evidence against them. It's like they're right.
The law doesn't apply. Like, sometimes stress, the law is the law. Mm-hmm. You can't change it. Where other times they're like, yes, this is the law, but in this case,
they bend the rules for them. Even the fact that she wasn't arrested until 3 days later. Mm-hmm. When does that happen? Yeah. That does not happen to regular people.
No, it doesn't.
Especially, imagine if it were reversed and it was a black male cop entering the apartment of a white woman.
Yeah,
and he opens fire on her
because he says he thought she was an intruder and he was scared because men and women can burglarize, men and women can have guns.
But it's like, no, if even we don't even have to go that far. If she were a woman and she saw a woman, she would not have shot her.
That's true.
Even if she was breaking into her apartment, it's just that the fear that we claim is innate or natural, or that we have no control over, is circumstantial and biased. Like, our fear is biased. Yeah. And so, no, you don't get to opt into a career and then claim that everything that this career is, being a cop is characterized by, maybe you're interacting with criminals on a regular basis. Maybe you're in situations where your life is in danger often. Maybe you're in fear for your life. But you're opting into this career, so you need to be held to the same standards as everybody else. You don't get to say you're afraid all the time. Then don't be a cop if you're afraid. Yeah.
No, I mean, the more when I first read the story, it's terrible. And then you read more about the story and it gets more and more terrible. And then you just read her response and it's just like, and the whole, like, just trying to step away from any sort of, like, this is her fault when it's obviously her fault. And it makes me angry that there's a statement that I read somewhere. They were like, both sides are equally anguished about this. And it's like, no, her pain of, oh shit, I shot someone is not the same as his mom's pain of my son who did nothing wrong died in his apartment. That is nothing. Like, that is not the same. And to claim that, I'm sure she feels bad. I'm sure she does. I mean, even in her mugshot, she looks like there's a lot. Yeah. But I don't think that it is in no way fair, and it's so insulting to even put both her pain or whatever she's going through, her family's pain, in the same sentence or the same breath as his family's. And his mom saying, I'm a Christian, I'm going to forgive her, I just want to look her in the eyes and for her to tell me why. She's already saying she's going to forgive him, which, like, beyond it, I can't even understand being that close to it and already being like, I would be willing to forgive this person.
That's what those people were saying after Dylan Roof shot up that church. They were saying the same thing.
And that's and she's entitled to whatever. So I'm not going to tell that woman how she. But I know, but the fact that it's like what that mom is saying is that she wants you to be honest and to tell her, like, I'm sorry, I did that, and I shouldn't have. Instead of saying, well, it was justified because I thought he was going to kill me.
In his house. In his underwear. Mm-hmm. At 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Like, where he was probably, like, asleep, preparing to get up for work in the morning. And
struggling to get into his apartment and banging on his door.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah, no,
I'm
it's
just, at this point, it's like, they can't afford to keep making these kinds of mistakes.
Mm-mm.
You can't. You have to be, and this is the problem. This is the bigger problem that I have. They aren't forced to be reflexive about what their identity means to other people, and to other people's lives and their survivals, and just their daily comfort. You know, you are making people uncomfortable. You, as a white cop, are making people uncomfortable, and you have no kind of onus or anything about it. You are just parading through the streets, like, you know, demanding all this respect, with wielding your power just left and right. And it's like, you have to be present and realize the climate that we're in, the political climate. Like, black people are afraid of cops, and why shouldn't they be? Look at the patterns.
Yeah, or
where is it safe to be a black man? Where? Yeah. Not even in your own apartment.
Yeah.
Not even your own home can you be safe. So why are people questioning why black people feel this way about cops?
Yeah, and I mean, to tie it to our other stuff we talked about, this is what Colin Kaepernick is all about. This is why it's kneeling. Like, he's like, and for the police to say, this campaign is making people not like cops. No. People like this woman are making people not like cops. People
like her department.
Yes, the Texas Rangers not charging her. Them not her being released.
Texas Rangers literally
pulled the warrant. Yes.
Pulled the warrant.
After
they
the
wanted
police
to look more into her story before arresting her.
Even when the very own police department had issued a warrant, the Texas Rangers pulled the warrant, and it's like, this is why people don't trust cops, and this is why people need protests like Colin Kaepernick's. And Botham's death, he sacrificed everything. Like, he didn't have to be in the military. You don't have to be in the military. You don't have to be a police officer to experience sacrifice. His mom, like, there's so much pain.
Her son is gone.
Yes, like, and there's so much pain. Yeah, like, there's so much pain in other people.
Police officers volunteer to make that sacrifice. Nobody is getting. People aren't getting drafted.
Yeah.
You are volunteering. You are opting into the military. You are choosing to put your life on the line in that way. He did not make this choice. She took the choice from him. Yeah. She took his life.
Yes. So, once again, this is a perfect example of why athletes kneel. This is a perfect example of why Colin Kaepernick's protest is so important. And this is exactly what he's kneeling about. It's not about veterans. It's not about the flag. It's about the fact that in the United States, Black bodies, especially Black men, are disposable, and even when they do nothing wrong, police can still kill them and get away with it.
So I strongly suggest that you wake the fuck up.
Okay, so now for our What's Being Slept On segment, we will be discussing the 10 things that Issa taught us.
Yes.
And we're kind of just going to go through these, kind of pretty quickly. All right, so number 1, good friends are honest. So I love how honest and straightforward Issa, Molly, Tiffany, and Kelly are. Kelly straight up told Issa how bad her financial situation was. She didn't sugarcoat it, and it helped Issa plan accordingly. I think that kind of honesty is important in friendship.
Yeah.
Number 2, don't be dismissive of your partner's struggles. Pay attention to signs of mental health issues and be supportive. So, remember from season 1, Lawrence was sleeping on the couch, unemployed for 2 years, and that to me sounds like depression. So I think that rather than cheating on him and all the other stuff that Issa did, she should have been supportive and encouraged him to seek professional support if that's what it took.
Yes.
Number 3, know when it's time to leave your job. Pay attention to your discomfort and that little voice inside your head. And then low-key, be careful of the job that you enter in the first place. There may have been signs early on that Issa ignored. So We Got Y'all is hella problematic, as we know. And the fact that Joanne demoted Issa for doing the work of trying to figure out why schools were no longer supporting their organization was a telltale sign that Issa needed to do.
Yeah, and I think for that it's important, like, it's okay to be disillusioned, and if you entered a job because you thought it was doing one thing, but you realize that's not what it does, it's okay to dip. It's like, you don't have to, it may look like, and like working for a nonprofit is good because you do this, but if you realize you're not really making the difference you want to, then it's okay to leave.
Yeah. And Joanne is just, I mean, they said like a white hand scooping up little black kids. It's probably not good marketing. And she's like defensive about it. Pay attention to those little things.
Yeah.
Number 4, be understanding / supportive with changing friendship dynamics when friends enter new phases of life. So Molly's new job, for instance, Issa was not understanding of Molly no longer being able to go to Coachella because like she picked up this new assignment.
Yeah.
And although we didn't see this, it may have made Molly feel away. I'm not sure how, but I'm sure that we'll see in the next coming episodes, like if she's frantically trying to work on something at the last minute, like, that's a sign that you need to be more considerate of your friend. It's not all about you. Like, yeah, you might want your best friend there with you during this weekend to party and stuff, but she got stuff to do. She got grown people stuff to do.
Yeah, and friendships change. Like, they're never going to stay like they were. Yeah. People enter different phases of their lives, different jobs, and like, you can't be in your feelings about the fact that someone else is growing in a different way that you are. You just have to be accepting.
Yeah.
Next one is being pregnant does change everything, even friendships. And I think this is something that I learned recently, and I'm not usually like a huge Tiffany fan, like in the show. I really like Amanda Seales as a person, but in the show, she's like too bougie for me. But I totally related because, a couple instances lately, I've been included in things because I'm pregnant. I didn't drink. I didn't do anything, when people were, and even dancing was really hard for me because I get really tired. But I felt like that I was trying to pretend like I wasn't pregnant, and people are understanding. They're really happy. They're like, oh, our pregnant friend, we're so happy you're here. But they just won't understand what your body's going through. And you have to be real and say like, okay, maybe I shouldn't go to Coachella. Maybe I shouldn't go to this party. Maybe I shouldn't go to this event because I'm pregnant and it's not going to be as fun for me and it's not going to be as fun for them. And then I kind of got her being like upset about her friends not understanding her, but also like, it's not their job to understand you. Like they can't understand you. They're not experiencing what you're experiencing, and it's your choice to go anyway. And so I feel like when someone's pregnant in the friendship, both sides have to be realistic and know that, okay, things are going to change. I'm not going to be able to do everything with everyone. I'm going to have to sit some things out and not be in my feelings about it. But yeah, there are some things that we can do that are pregnant friendly. But I think that's what's most important is to know that, like, to try to act like a pregnancy isn't going to change what you guys can do, how long you can stay out, what trips you can take, what you're able to physically do is really naive. And it's only going to end up in situations like Tiffany's where she feels like even when she's included, she's excluded. So, yeah. And the next one, gentrification is a bitch and is painful to watch. And this is something that I've experienced personally. My neighborhood growing up was like all Latino. Like no one wanted to live there. And now it's one of the most expensive neighborhoods to live in. And it's all white people. And I mean, my mom has been living there all her life here in the United States. And sometimes there'll be restaurants and she'll tell me, I don't want to go there because there's too many white people and I don't feel comfortable. And it's like, that's her neighborhood. Like that's where all her friends have moved out. So many neighbors that we know have been forced to leave because they can't afford rent. All these cool, like, Mexican bakeries, washaterias, little stands, they're all gone and replaced by, like, 2 expensive taco places that are, like, a taco for $6 that white people...
One taco?
Yeah, it's like these on White Oak. There's like all those restaurants are new. Like none of them were there, and one of them is called like La Calle, which is like it's so hipster. Yeah, it's supposed to be street taco, but it's like tacos that Mexicans like street tacos. No one would sell that stuff, and it's really expensive. Like you could buy a taco for $1 before, and now you have to pay like a lot of money, like $4 for a taco. And then the type of people that are around, and the worst part is like the people who move in being annoyed by the people who've been there, or being annoyed by just the community that's been there. And so I totally felt, specifically last season, but more of this spillover this season, just the ramifications that gentrification have on people in the community.
Yeah. And I mean, what the neighborhood that Issa's We Got Y'all job is in is this area called Leimert Park, which is a historically Black neighborhood, and very upwardly mobile neighborhood, and it is actually right now being gentrified. And so I have friends who grew up there, but the rent went up because they built that the football stadium, and now they're building a soccer stadium there. And so the rent prices went up, and then you have these landlords that are intentionally trying to find loopholes to be able to kick people out, so that they can, get in people that will pay the higher rates. So it's like what she's showing. I mean, gentrification is obviously real, but what she's showing in that particular neighborhood is not even fiction. Like, that's really happening right now. Yeah,
and in a lot of places all over the country. So I appreciate, like, although this is based in LA, like, I saw so much of where I grew up in this show. Number 7, sometimes you never grow out of being broke, even when your friends do. And this is particularly like, Molly and Issa have such different, right now, there's such socioeconomic status. Molly is, they both went to college, they both graduated, but sometimes, like, it's really hard when you're still trying to struggle to, like, be financially independent and your friends are doing so well. And so I think that what Issa is showing me is, like, even at my age, to, like, barely have any savings, to still be, like, living, like, just to only be a little better than I was 10 years ago. Like, it's okay. And so sometimes you don't grow out of it yet. And so I think, like, eventually Issa will get her stuff together. She'll get, like, a job, and she'll be able to save. But I just like seeing relating to Issa in a way that's like, you don't have to be the same rate as your friends. And sometimes it's okay.
Yeah. I think that ties in really well with the next two. So number 8. It's okay to still be figuring things out. So, I think that your late 20s are filled with a bunch of, like, sometimes it's externally, like, imposed, but a lot of times self-imposed pressure and feeling like you need to have everything together. Like, you should know what you want to do with your life. You should know where you want to live for the rest of your life. You should have a partner. You should be making money and doing fun things. But that's not the case for everybody. Like, it's fine as we stay in school longer. Like, it's fine for us to be kind of behind time-wise previous generations. Like, some people might be getting pressure from family. Like, what are you doing with your life? I get questions all the time about what I'm going to do when I finish school. Yeah. And I'm still like, I don't know. Like, let me figure it out, So, I do. I also get, I think I realized with seeing Issa's character that, it's okay to still be trying to figure out what you want to do. Like, we don't have to necessarily rush it. You don't want to jump into something that that isn't a good fit for you. Yeah. And then number 9, adulting is hard, but it's a blessing. So, I remember all the time, like, I would be saying, complaining to my grandma about something, like, oh, I hate doing this, I don't want to do this. And she'd be like, you just keep living. Like, saying that, like, getting older is a blessing, because a lot of people don't get that blessing. Yes, that's true. So rather than focusing on, oh my God, I'm getting so old, oh my God, I got to do all these things, it's like, no, appreciate those experiences, because not everybody gets to have them.
Yeah, and what I liked about Issa is season 1, she was with Lawrence. Yeah. We saw them like, the reason why she's in this situation is because she had to, like, all their finances were tied up with each other. And so, like, when you go through a breakup like that, it's like literally starting all over again. And so she found herself like, oh, I wasn't prepared to live on my own because I had been living with someone else. And so now that she finally has her own place, she's hustling with 2 jobs, even though one of them she's not qualified for. Oh, well, actually now only one, because she just quit her other job. But I just, like, throughout everything, she's still, like, pushing forward, and she's not giving up, and she, has no furniture, but is still, like, out there. And I really appreciate seeing, like, the more realistic view of what it is for people from like us to like be living, especially because she's like in LA. So
yeah. Actually, you know what's really funny is like a few weeks back, the Shade Room had posted somebody's tweet talking about how expensive it was to live in LA, and one of the comments was saying like how people stay in relationships that should have been over 5 years ago because they can't afford to pay rent by themselves.
Yeah.
So it's like you're staying with the person that you went because y'all are splitting the bills.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I applaud Lawrence for being like, you know what? Peace out. Like, I feel like I'm not being appreciated here. We're going to break up, even if that means we both got to struggle. You know, I feel like Lawrence is not struggling anymore.
I know.
So it's like, now you got a job and now you let her.
I think his job pays more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is kind of, that's kind of foul, but
yeah.
Whatever. Okay, and then number 10, don't sleep on exes' couches if you want to be over them.
Yeah.
I mean,
even if you're like, we're friends and we're not sleeping together, it's like,
and then it's just literally one room over.
And listen to your friends when they're like, this is not a good idea. Yeah. Like, as much as you try to convince everyone, and even with, her, what's his name? What's her ex's name? It just slipped my mind.
Lauren?
No, the other one.
Oh,
Daniel. Like, even though they were both like, oh no, this is working for us. This is fine. It's like, no, if your friends are telling you, like, girl, it's not a good choice, then listen to them.
All it took was, like, I think it was, like, a bottle of something for him to be like, oh, just slide up in my bed, and she was there.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And, actually, I want to add to this number 11, because we cannot let Molly's kind of triflingness escape this list.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Don't get involved with people that are in relationships. You see, like, Dro is talking about his marriage is open, but Molly is not a priority.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, maybe if you want to hook up with somebody that's in an open relationship, fine. But you have to also accept the fact that the marriage might be open, but that's still his wife.
Yeah, and if you're giving advice, then you should take it.
Yes,
so Molly's really good at telling Issa that
what to do.
Her relationship, like looking down kind of and being like, I can't believe you still like are doing this type of shit. Mm-hmm. Where if she was honest, and speaking of being honest, she's not even honest with her therapist because her therapist didn't even know about Dro.
Honest with your therapist.
So it's just kind of like for all the Mollys out there that are really good at dishing out criticism to your friends. Look in your own home.
Sweep on your porch first. Make sure that you can take what you're dishing out and be honest with your therapist. Your therapist, go back and listen to the episodes that we had on mental health. Your therapist cannot help you. It's not doing you any good. It's a waste of money if you're lying to them.
Yeah. And they're not, all they're going to do is just talk to you. It's not like they're going to go home and tell you.
I mean, they might go home and tell their wives. I don't know.
But they're not going to force you to do anything. They'll still take your money happily. So we know this was really brief, but we, for this episode, wanted to spend more time on the trash that happened in the know segment. And so usually our What's Being Slept On segments are a little bit longer, but this week we wanted to just kind of give you guys an overview of what had been happening that we think is important, and then end with like kind of a light note.
I don't want to overwhelm you with like a 2 hour.
Yeah, because we know this episode's already pretty long by now. Yeah. So as always, if you have any suggestions, any feedback for us, please feel free to email us at woke.ishpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at wokeishpodcast. We reached 500 followers,
a little over 500
followers. So thank you so much. We appreciate all the love that we're getting from you guys. And we also appreciate the comments that you guys leave. And so please feel free to DM us if you wanted to be more private or just drop a comment. We always love when people go back to older posts as well. And so give us feedback what you thought about our videos last week. If you liked it, if you didn't, we'd be more than happy to listen to that. And, we hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And for those of you who tuned out and then tuned back in after you watched Issa, welcome back. But we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.